This video will show how to use the Configuring Quick Connections tool in Advanced Steel 2019. Tools are provided to define connections for any situation or project. According to the settings, the joints are designed and Advanced Steel automatically creates all connections to the project model. Quick Cut automatically creates all necessary shortenings and copes before starting the connection process. Using the selection filters on the tool palettes, I can highlight the features and delete them. Quick Connection All allows you to define the connections for the various framing situations. This is especially good and useful when creating or designing a chain of hotels, restaurants, or similar projects. A clip angle connection is configured for this type of scenario. Again, from the selection filters, I'll highlight all of the beam features and delete them. So we've looked at Quick Connection for All, Quick Cut, and now we'll explore Configure Quick Connections. Connections will be automatically created according to the selected profiles set in the connection rules. For this example, the connection is North America and we are users. So I can highlight the North American, and what you see in the heading will be displayed in the window to the right. We will be looking at the beam to column scenario. So within the beam to column scenario, you have the user group profiles customized by the user. You have members and all different types of member situations. You have member conditions just next to it. So in this case, we have flange perpendicular, and there's many more you can choose from. Next to that, we have the rules. So for example, as we saw before, the default is clip angle. I'm going to change out that clip angle to a shear plate. The member order allows you to reverse the selection if you wanted to select the column first, then the beam, or vice versa. So once that's done, I'm going to apply the changes. I'm going to select Use to start the process, and then OK. A shear plate connection is connected to an eye-to-eye beam, and the situation is perpendicular. We can further go in and customize the shear plate connection by selecting the gray cuboid. After completing the modifications to the shear plate connection, we want to save our changes to the library. Section 1 would be the column, and Section 2 the beam. So we'll just put in a name, My Preference, all in uppercase. Once that's done, select OK and exit the shear plate properties dialog box. Open the Configure Quick Connections again, and from the North America, expand beam to column. So we're using the default settings this time. Again, beam to column. We're going to expand and see the shear plate connection. Now we want to add rows, add new connection rules or new connection situations. So for this scenario, I'll add 4. So into the members category, remember we're I-beam to I-beam. That's what we used in this scenario. The member condition, again, is perpendicular, flange perpendicular. And we're going to pull the default settings that we just created for the shear plate. So we're going to go ahead and do the same scenario, but for maybe a web perpendicular. Again, using our default settings. Follow the same workflow for the connection situations for rows 3 and 4. Once all the modifications have been made from the defaults, you're going to hit Apply just to lock in the changes. Hit OK and exit the dialog box. So back in the structure, we're going to remove any existing connections in the structure, and now we're going to be ready to create the connections. So we're going to select the connection rule category icon when we open the dialog box. We are going to select from the users the North American, then beam to column. Select Use, select OK, and here the beams in the column in the model fitting the criteria specified in the member conditions and according to the values specified in the connection properties, My Preferences, are connected. The connection was saved with 3 rows of 2 bolts. So in this next example, we'll change the number of rows to 2 using the global parameter settings. The global joint design parameters allows us to change the settings for the shear plate, clip angle, and end plate joints. So we're going to select the shear plate panel, and we're going to change the number of rows from 3 to 2. Settings for the clip angle panel allows you to define the settings based on the beam size. But for now, we'll go back to the Configure Quick Connections. In addition to all of these settings that can be modified, you can add additional options from the default settings located from the Connection Rule tab. Select the default button, and I think I'll create a column stiffener at the top. I'm going to put a little check in, X out, and I will select OK. So I'm going to go back to the model and erase all connections. Go back to the Configure Quick Connections and select the connection rules for the North American beam to column scenario. I'll select Use to apply the changes and OK. And you can see we have a column stiffener at the top, and the shear plate has 2 rows of bolts.